I'm going to go over the 4 most common mistakes I see people making with bow staff training. The first thing is having the wrong size bow. I see this quite a bit. I mentioned it before, your bow needs to be shorter than you are. If you're 5'10", you don't need to get a 6-foot bow. Go ahead and get a 5.5-foot bow. Just, again, a little bit smaller than you are. The reason why I do in freestyle bow, the type of bow that I'm practicing with, if it's too large, as you do your sweeps and your rotations, it's going to drag and hit the floor. So you need to be comfortably a couple of inches shorter than you. That's the first mistake. Second mistake I see a lot of people making is the incorrect hold. Now, again, we hold it in thirds. Remember, one palm is up, one palm is down. In thirds. And I see a lot of students, they're like, yes, I know it's in thirds. That's how I do. And they begin like this. They begin practicing their techniques in thirds. But after a couple of movements, I notice they start to slide them in closer. Why would you do that? It's a bit more comfortable for you. It's easier in some ways to move it around faster when it's closer than if it's wider apart. What happens, you lose the integrity of the full movement and you really don't have as good control anymore. You have your axis point right in the center rather than having more control. This is a long staff. These aren't nunchucks or commas. So you want to keep that hold in thirds. Wherever you're at, doing your movements, of course, only if you're doing spins and such will you change. Other than that, thirds on this here, on a thrust, down thrust, strike, sweep, keeping that correct hold. And the third mistake I see, I call rigidness. So even if they have the correct hold, they try to keep that hold too much, so it sounds difficult to you, right? Now you're telling me to keep the correct hold, but now you're getting mad at me for it. Don't be so rigid in your movement. So what I see a lot of times, their wrists are so tight that their movements don't seem as fluid. Even if they're doing the correct motions, there's so much rigidness in their striking. What you need to do, keep your wrists loose. Your wrists are loose. As you complete the strike is whenever you tighten the wrist. They're loose, tighten, loose, tighten, loose, tighten. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping my body loose, and you need to warm up, get your wrists moving. Having flexible wrists, of course, they help you dramatically in most weapons such as nunchucks, but even in bow staff as well. So whatever I'm doing, I'm loose. Whenever I do a strike, that's whenever I tighten. That's whenever I show the power and the strength. Now the fourth mistake that I see quite commonly in bow staff are stances. Now, again, don't worry about stances so much when you first start training. Worry about your hand movement. Worry about the things I just talked to you about. But your stances, even if you have wonderful arm movements in your strikes, you're doing these correctly. But if my stances are weak and not wide enough and not strong, it doesn't matter what I'm doing up here. My total performance went down the drain. Because if you're doing bow staff combination, if you're doing fighting with it, if you're doing it at a tournament, you need total body performance. So front strike, I need to be in a long front stance, a thrust, even deeper stance, sweeping, rotations. I'm landing in nice stances. One leg's down, the other leg is straight. You may be in a horse stance in some motions. That stance is paramount. It's actually going to bring more strength to your entire body. Just like if you run, you get your body warmed up. Not only are your legs more warmed up, but now your arms, your upper body is too, because there's more blood flow. So those are 4 common mistakes. Just think about them next time you're practicing. I know it's going to help you out a lot in your training.